As daylight revealed the scope of the damage and the reality of the tremendous and life-altering impacts began to sink in, the cleanup started almost immediately. Local officials and the media played major roles in communicating the risks after the storm, not just for the following days, but for weeks afterward.
You did the best job preparing for a hurricane any city could possibly do. Now, we're going to do the best job recovering any city ever did. A hurricane is a psychologically damaging thing because everyone is affected.
The first indication, someone came into the weather service and said, the airport's gone. Turns out that wasn't necessarily true, but there had been some damage. Wild Dunes is no more. So all the early indications, the rumors started running rampant about what was left, what wasn't, what had been damaged, what hadn't been, and how much damage had been done.
We immediately got with our elected officials and at the county and then at the municipal levels and agreed on a curfew time because we didn't want people out after dark for safety reasons, of course, and hopefully tried to keep some of the looting down.
We go all the way back to the TV station, and the dumpster was in the middle of the street from the station. It was sitting in the middle of Ben Sawyer Boulevard. We looked down, I see the Ben Sawyer Bridge standing like this, vertical. And I said, that can't be good because the station was sitting right here. So we went in there, we had to break open the door, the side door. It was a mess. Everything in the studio, everything in the buildings had been lifted up in the water and just kind of pushed to the edge of the building.
Channel 2 finally said, Rob, go home and get some sleep. Number one, I didn't know if I had a home to go back to, because I had a home in Mount Pleasant and I hadn't been there. So finally I was able to drive, had to dodge pine trees and big street signs and interstate signs in the road. Got home and laid my head on the pillow. It didn't have power, but I'll never forget, I'm gonna get some sleep. And the first sound I heard was chainsaws all over the neighborhood. So sleep was not on the agenda that day either.
Complete destruction of the streets and the trees that were uprooted because the way the winds went, they all fell in different directions. It knocked down on the side of the highways all of the trees and the light poles and everything else. It was total destruction.
The fire department had to go through with their chainsaws and cut trees out of the roadway and clear the area so that they could get to any kind of fire that might pop up. And that was another concern too, fire. Because of the electricity when it came back on, and then also too you had propane tanks and everything that were dislodged and floating and ending up in various places. So there were a lot of hazards post Hugo.
You just don't move a tree like that. You've got to get chainsaws and it takes hours to move. So there were a lot of places you couldn't drive, a lot of streets you couldn't get down. There was debris everywhere, particularly the first couple of days. And there were power lines. And we didn't know if they were dead power lines, hot power lines, or what. That was kind of scary.
Friday, I was at the weather service reporting after we got power back on, and we kind of surveyed the damage. And I'll never forget, there was a mobile home that was in your old front yard. And I asked the question when I said, where's the mobile home park? And they said, Rob, we don't know. We don't know where this thing came from.
I looked out the window and the big, giant, huge billboard that was up there was completely flattened.
It was sunny and it was windy, and we toured the city to see what the damage was. And my husband said, this looks just like a war zone, minus bodies. There were limbs, signs down, roofs torn off buildings. It was a horrible sight to see.
Boats piled up, just stacked up like toys. I mean, those are just unforgettable images.
There were boats, there were jacuzzis, there were people's docks, parts of people's homes, all of that, all in the road. And when we got down to Creekside, which is where we live, it was just like 2 feet of stuff, all kinds of stuff. They're piling into the road. You could barely walk through the road.
I remember going on the beach and there was sand everywhere. All the pools on the ocean front was filled completely with sand, and there was water up to the second floor of the hotels.
One thing about water I learned, water moving 5 miles an hour has the same amount of force There's a wind at over 100 miles an hour. It's real heavy, and it takes down everything in its path, including like brick walls.
We got a chance to drive up and down 17. Water was flooded all over on both sides of Highway 17. I noticed even on 17, I could see alligators swimming up there around Litchfield, swimming across from one end, from the ocean side to the creek side.
There's always the aftermath, so it may seem exciting to a point, but when you have to live in it, it's no fun at all. And around here, there were curfews. They had to worry about looters. The traffic lights weren't on. It was pitch black. I remember driving home midnight every night from Channel 2, and I mean, Mount Pleasant, it was really weird. I mean, it was so dark.
It was pitch black at night. I mean, it's weird because you go over the bridge and you're used to seeing lights and stuff like that. It was just absolutely like a black hole, just completely black. There were so many people out of power. There was debris everywhere.
Being without power for weeks, some people a month, wanting a hot shower, just a hot shower. And then wondering when the power is going to come back on, and getting food and all those kinds of things. It's not fun.
Depending on the location, some people went 3 or 4 weeks before they got power back on. And that was mostly true in the more rural areas, where the utility companies basically had to rebuild their infrastructure out there.
If you don't have power, you can't come back to life. People can't work. It's one thing you lost your roof. It's another thing if you don't have a paycheck because your business is not open because there's no power.
We have young reporters who come in here and they want to get a hurricane on their resume because it looks good when they send it to their next job of them in a hurricane blowing around and everything like you see on the networks and the Weather Channel. And I said, no, you don't want a hurricane because yes, there's a lot going on leading up to the hurricane and during the hurricane, but I think we forgot about the aftermath.
What you have to do is every element of normalcy you can return to people's lives helps them and their capacity to recover. Every component of life appearing to be back to normal, you have to fight for those because it's a healing process for the community, and they need to get back to full health as quickly as you can.
Hurricane Hugo changed the lives of those who lived through the storm forever, including those well away from the coast. In fact, Hugo produced a swath of hurricane-force winds all the way to near Charlotte, North Carolina. As a direct result of the storm, 14 people lost their lives in the Carolinas.